My name is Joseph Jeon. I was born in Seoul, Korea in 1971. We immigrated as a family. My father and mother and myself, I have a younger sister. My mother was pregnant with her at the time, so we immigrated in 1973. We went to Barberton, Ohio, where my father's a doctor, and he had a medical residency in Ohio. And so we were just supposed to be there for a couple of years while he did his physician training. And then we were supposed to go back, and we kind of never did. I actually wasn't born with the name Joseph. I got it when I was about 5 years old, when I was naturalized as a US citizen. My birth name is Jeon, which I still go by, Joseph Jeon, my legal middle name now. Now I'm a university professor at the University of California, Irvine. I teach in the English department, and I'm also now the director of the Center for Critical Korean Studies here, there at UCI. I mean, the way it's been explained to me, and the thing that kind of defined my family's early history, or actually this history in the United States, was that around that time, this was in the 70s, and this was the sort of moment of deindustrialization, and there was a lot of what they call white flight, or more pertinently for my family, the movement of professionals outside of these kind of Rust Belt cities. And so when I was growing up, a lot of my friends, all of my Korean American friends, their fathers were all either anesthesiologists or radiologists, or at least some kind of doctor. It was a weird moment, sort of, it's a kind of post-1965, naturalization bill moment. And it kind of, that's the kind of reason that I'm here and not, in Seoul. It almost seems like an accident that I grew up in the US instead of growing up in Korea. So I have two jobs. Basically, I'm a university professor. My field is Asian American literature, but my most recent work is on Korean cinema. Fairly recently, last year, I'm the director for the Center for Critical Korean Studies, which is a interdisciplinary center. It's not an academic program. We don't have our own faculty and students or whatever, but we sort of it's an attempt to sort of centralize Korean studies at UCI, and we have a lot of faculty in Korean studies. It's pretty wonderful there. So we support their work, we support students' work, we do community programming. I guess our center is part of a larger effort to make sure that it stays there and that it always kind of has a place. Well, I'm married. I met my wife in graduate school. I have a 9-year-old daughter who's awesome. That's our family. We're kind of like to think of us as like a power trio. Like, I like the simplicity of that. I mean, this for the same reason I like, rock bands that have 3 people. Like, there's a kind of simplicity to it. We're very we like to travel a lot, so we're very mobile. It's, to this day, my daughter can just sleep in the middle of a hotel room bed. Like, we don't have to get a second room or a second whatever. So it's great. My daughter goes to, a elementary school in Irvine, and it's mostly Asian, I think. Or I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but her, her Caucasian American friends, like, they all want to be Asian. Like, and I was talking to one of my daughter's friend's mother, and she was like, she had to have a talk with her kid. She's like, you're not Asian, right? Like, and she was like really disappointed. Like, she wanted to dye her hair. I was blonde. She wanted to dye her hair black, and like, she thinks she's too big, and because like she's surrounded by, and I mean, it's funny, but it's on the other hand, it's like, it's real. Like, she actually really feels like kind of anxious by not being Asian. So, and sometimes I get mad at my daughters, like, you do not know how good you have it. So that's what I mean. I guess everything is different, and it's a different coast. They're very different kinds of issues. I mean, some things always stay the same. It's about, kids teasing other kids and those sorts of things. But in terms of like the kind of racial dynamics, they're very different, and I'm very glad about that. It's nice for her to grow up and not. I think a lot of us Korean Americans or Asian Americans that grew up in the East Coast, and on some level, we're kind of damaged by race. Even if you had a happy childhood like I did. But I think that she doesn't have that. There's always, points of difference that people get on each other's cases about. But it's a very different different kind of environment. I mean, when I'm in Seoul in the summers, I would think like, like if like two facts were different in my life, like that's where I would have grown up, and how different would that be, And it's amazing how I wouldn't say accident, it's not so much like this, but something close to that can make kind of all these differences, all these changes. I mean, like what if my father had gotten a residency in, Chicago or New York instead of, Barberton. What if we had ended up here? It's hard to imagine. I mean, like I guess it's been an interesting conversation for me because I'm just thinking about the way in which so much of who we are is informed by place. Like the places we not just grow up but move to or come in contact with, and the various kinds of cultural formations in those locations. My name is Joseph Jeon, and this is my Korean American story.